But I
As
just
I said, you can do your own recording. Yeah.
okay. Also, with the team meeting, every time we go to the meeting, do we have to go through your email, or is there any way we can save this meeting in Teams?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all of that.
So every time I try to go to this meeting for lectures, I have to go to my email and go through the link that you sent us
That
through.
is correct. That is correct. Yes. And it will be that way. I'm not using the one established by the university. That's why I put an announcement in Canvas right before the class every time. For based on feedback, okay? It's easier to do separate ones if you're going to be in a chat because then you can go to the day of the chat and you don't have to look through all the chats and search everything, okay? So I do it separately. The other reason is I do it separately because sometimes I have people come to the meeting that aren't in Canvas for whatever reason, and I can have them come to this, but they're not in the class teams meeting, and they won't let them come to those. So if I have guests, visitors, students, whatever, I have to have a link. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's just go over some of these. They're fairly simple. Let me bring up Python. If you don't remember, we have to come over on Windows and bring up idle. And if you're on Mac, you'll just go to your launch. Okay. So let me just get a new file. All right. Okay, so I want a program that will print I'm enrolled in Python programming. So that's obviously just a print statement. But I do want a quote in the printout itself. So if you'll remember from last time, I have to use a different kind of quote on the outside. So I'll use double quotes. I single quote. And end it with double quotes. So just remember that the outside quotes have to be different than what you want printed on the inside. Okay. And if we run it, I should get exact. Oh, I forgot my exclamation point. There you go. And I should get that. Okay. All right. The next one. Okay, so this really isn't a programming issue as much as we're looking at which one of these are valid variable names. Remember, a variable name has to start with an underscore or a letter, and it can be a capital or a little letter. Okay. So cells, that's good. Okay. Underscore cells 21, it can have numbers, that's good. This does not start with a number, with a letter or an underscore, so that's bad. That one's not a good one. Okay. This one does not start with an underscore or a letter, that's bad. And this one just has a lot of words separated by underscores, that's okay. So these two were invalid. Those are not good variable names, they won't work. Okay. Also, a variable name can't be a keyword, and a keyword in Python is just something that you, like print, okay? You can't call something print because it wouldn't know what to do necessarily, even though that's really a function. The keywords are listed on page 17, but you'll know real quick if you're using a keyword, it'll fuss at you, okay? All right, so now I give you some code and I say what's going to display. So let's go over and let's display those. Comment that. My name is Joe. That's exactly what you'd expect, okay? Let's go and get the other one. Now this one has, okay. And let's that. And I get the number is number. And that's because this is in quotes. All right? If I had done this, but I printed the 2. So when you're looking at these print statements, and I can guarantee you'll have stuff like this on the quizzes where I'll say, what does this print? And you'll have to tell me, make sure that you check if it's got quotes around it, did it have a value, any number of things. Let's look at the other one. Comment this out. Okay, so this is basically the same as this one, right? Except there's no space here in is Joe, whereas there was a space up here. What's the difference? A plus, that does not give you a space. A comma gives you a space, and you're going to want to remember the difference there. So when I ask you what's printed, you're going to have to take into account, well, does it have quotes on it? Does it not have quotes on it? Does it have a plus? Does it have a comma? You're going to have to make sure that you look at those very specifically.
Is the doing the taking away the space on purpose, or is it just because of the way it's we're coding it?
It's the way you're coding it. Yeah. What you're saying here is, I want to put these 2 strings together and make 1 string. And when you do that, you get 1 string. Yeah. Okay. But when you do a comma, it just wants to print a bunch of things one after another, so I'll put a space in between. That's just the way we're coding it. Okay. Let's look at this one. Now this one, notice very similar to this one, but it doesn't have number equals 2 up here. It just has the statement like this. So let me take that out. Now let's see what this does. Well, this one has an error in it because it says, I don't know what number is. When it says something's undefined, it means it doesn't have a value. And number doesn't, because I commented out that I had set it equal to 2. So it doesn't know what to do. Okay. Now, sometimes the error messages are good like this. So when it says numbers not defined, you pretty well know you've got to go back and give it a value. Sometimes they're not so nice error messages and they're hard to work on, and we'll see some of those. If I come back in and I reset number to 2, oops, sorry, number equal to, what do you, yeah.
Professor, what do the hashtags do?
Comments?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it comments out the code, so Python ignores it.
Okay.
Yeah, remember we talked about that on Tuesday? Yeah. So this time, if I want to print the number is, it'll print. But notice I had to change it to a comma, right? When I left it plus, I still got the problem because it's trying to take a string and add number to it, and it won't work because string and integer can't do that. So if you're going to print it with a number, it's got to have a comma. Yeah. Yeah. Let me see what else is there. Okay, now here's some fun ones. I can guarantee you that you'll have some of these types of things where I ask you what's printed based on commas and quotes and plus signs and things like that. Then I will ask you some of these. What's the value of X when this executes? So if I were to look at this, and print, this goes along with all the precedents that we were talking about for operator precedents. So times, divide, plus, minus in that order. So I have to do times, so that's 12, and then add 2, and I get 14. Okay. What about this one? Remember, our precedent says parentheses always get done first, and then times, divide, plus, minus. Once I do parentheses here, what is 11 integer arithmetic 3? Remember, integer arithmetic just says how many times does 3 go into 11? It goes 3 times.
Is it 9?
Now you have 2. Pardon?
Oh, no, never mind.
Okay. Okay. 3, not 33. Yeah. Now I have times and divide. They're the same, so just go left to right. And what's that going to get me? 10.0. Why 10.0? Because this is floating point arithmetic. Okay? So I can guarantee you one of your questions for calculation like this will have something to do with whether it should have a 0.0 on it or no 0.0 on it. So you want to make sure that you understand the differences. Okay. Where am I? Okay, here we go. This one. Okay. Oh, I'll put it here. All right. So when we look at this one, what do we do first? Well, all of these have the same precedence, right? So I can just go left to right. I can calculate it. 2. All right, well, how did that come about? 15 mod 11. Now remember what that does is asks what's remaining. So after you put 11 into 15, there's 4 that remains, right? So that's 4, and then you have 4 integer arithmetic 3 times 2. Well, how many times? Okay, Does 3 go into 4? 1. 1 times 2 is 2. All right. And this is an integer 2 because there was no floating point arithmetic in this one. It was just double slashes. You just want to make sure that you practice these things. There's more in the book. Okay. And that's the last one, yeah. There's more in the book of these, but I can just guarantee you you're going to have a problem about how to print something, what's going to be printed, if this is going to be a correct variable name or not, and you're going to have at least 1 or 2 of these types of problems. Okay. And you'll get a worksheet probably every class period that you can start with, and then save all those worksheets along with the review sheet for the quiz, and you'll be pretty well set to practice, okay, for the quiz. What I would do when practicing for the quiz is once you have your answers and you've studied all of this, I would take these without a book and without a computer to practice getting this down, okay? Of course, on the quizzes, you'll have a multiple choice selection. So I'll give you several answers and you'll have to pick the correct one. Okay. Okay. So let me come back over to my Python. Okay, so let's talk a little bit. We've been doing precedence of operators and everything. But a lot of times we need to write equations in our Python code. And this does not work too well. There we go. By equations, I mean the ones that you're used to in math. Python isn't going to understand these types of things. You're going to have to take an equation and turn it into a Python statement. And that's what we're going to work on. Okay. So let me pull this over. Now these are basically out of the book. Okay. So I need to be able to say x equals something. All right. So what you do is you take the equation apart. In something like this, you take the top part and then the bottom part. You put the top part together. So I'll say a plus b, and then the bottom part, and that is the equivalent of this equation. Okay. What you have to do is you have to take an equation that may be different layers, and you got to stretch it out into one layer. So let's look at the other one. Let me see. Y equals. Now, when you see something like this in an equation, what you're really saying is it's 3 times x over 2, right? So you got to tell Python that 3 times x divided by 2. X divided by 2. There you go. Okay. Now, all of these have the same precedence, so this would get done correct. But if you want to help yourself, you could go on and put in extra parentheses just to remind yourself, okay, that these go together and it's 3 times that. Look at this one. This says 3bc. Well, you and I know that that means 3 times b times c, but we're going to have to tell Python that. So we're going to have 3 times b times c plus 4. Okay. You don't need the parentheses, but if you want to help clarify in your mind what the equation looks like, you can set it up that way. Here we have another one with something on top and something on bottom. When I see things like this, I automatically put in some parentheses. So I know that's the top part, and then this is the bottom part. And he's got more in the book to practice as well. I can guarantee you're going to have a question like this. You'll have to select the correct Python statement that matches some formula. Okay, let's try this one. Most of the time, we don't do these kinds of formulas in Python because we're business oriented. So we do something like present value. So let's do it using this one first. So that was P equals, now the top part is F, and the bottom part is 1 plus R. Now this is exponentiation, remember, and we have a symbol for that, 2 stars, N. All right. But remember what we said, we want meaningful variable names. Now on these, we didn't even know what those were, what those names were, what X stood for and why. And in math, sometimes you don't. Here, I'm telling you though, what they are. This is what those mean. So we need to plug those in so we can say present value equals. Okay. Divided by 1 plus rate the years. That should have been Y, but that's okay, to the years. All right. Now I know what this formula is saying, whereas this, unless I was really into business formulas, okay, I really wouldn't necessarily know what all those are. But here I do. So remember, we want to use meaningful names. If I give you a formula like this, and I don't tell you what they are, then you can just use the letters. But if I give you the formula and tell you what they are, then I want those as the variable names. Okay?
Quick question.
Yeah.
Just purely formatting. So you always put a space before and after each of the like add, subtract, and all that. Is that formatting or is that a code?
No. Spaces don't matter to Python.
Okay, I didn't think so. Just making sure.
Yeah, I'm doing
Thank
it
you.
so it maybe is a little more readable for you guys.
Oh, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, but spacing won't matter. Okay, let's look at this one. Okay, so here we have F equals, we have 9/5 times C plus 32, right? And I don't really need to put parentheses in here because that is the order of how it would get done. But I'm telling you what F and C are, so it really should have been okay. Now these two here are problems from the back of chapter 2. So you've already solved 2 problems from the back of chapter 2. You might want to look at them and see, okay, what they ask you to do. But basically, it's put this in formula in Python and everything. All right. So there's another type of problem you'll have on the quiz, is how to do a formula. Okay. And just practice the ones that are in the textbook as well. All right. Now, so far, we've been able to write some mathematical statements. We've been able to declare some variables and put values in them and print. And that's useful. However, okay, we're not always going to know what the value of the variable is. We're going to have to ask the user, what do you want the value to be? So we need a way to get input from the user, and that's real easy. So if I said age equal input, enter age. I print it. That. And I type in 24, it prints 24. All right. So it's real easy to get input from the keyboard. We're only going to get in our class, we'll either get input from the keyboard or from a file, and files are way down the line. So right now we're doing input. Okay. Notice when you do an input, tell the user what you're looking for. If you don't, they're not going to know what to type in. Okay. I specifically always put a colon and a space so it looks nice when the user sees it. And we're going to talk about homework 1 in just a minute, and you're going to want to do that, and I'll show you more in a minute. Okay, so I print age. That's easy. So let me come in here and say, let's get the name. So I get age, and I get the name. All right, that seems to be working pretty good. Let's try getting 2 numbers and adding them together. All right, so I'll say number 1 equals, I'll input 1. Them together, I'll say that's going to be the answer. So this is a pretty lengthy program for us. We haven't written anything this long. All our programs are basically going to be the same, though. We'll have some input, we'll do some sort of processing, and we'll print out the answer. The processing may be complicated, but it's always the same sort of process. So let's run this. First, let me comment this stuff out. So I'm going to block comment that stuff out so it'll just see this. Okay. If I run it, I'm going to type in 5 and 6. Ooh, and I get 56. That's not 11. Okay. Well, when you input something from the keyboard, Python always thinks it's text, like a letter. So it thought 5 had quotes around it, and it thought 6 had quotes around it. And when you add things with quotes around it, you just get those two things put together as one big quote. Okay? I really wanted to get 11 here. What I have to tell Python is, when you read this in, turn this into an integer. I have to turn this content into an integer. Now when I run it, I get 11. Okay? Anytime you use input, it accepts it as a string. Python acts like it's got quotes around it. If you want to take those quotes off, you've got to tell it what kind you want. You want int? You want float? Float. If I ran that, I can still type in 5 and 6, but then my answer has a decimal point on it because I said these were floats. When it read it in, it turned it into 5.0 and 6.0. Okay? If I run it again, let me do 5 and 6.0. That's fine. I still get 11 because it's turning everything to float. Okay? Try this. 5. Whoa, it doesn't like that. I typed in a word, but it couldn't convert it to float. So you'll get an error message. Okay? And it will tell you, could not convert string to float. And it tells you what the string was. And hopefully you'll go back and, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to type in a number here. Okay? All right. Let's say wanted int. And I type in 5. Oh, no. Yeah, no. Let me just cut that out. Typed in the wrong thing. Try that again. There we go. All right, so I'll type in 5 and 2.2. Oh, it doesn't like that. And I get this nasty message, invalid literal for base 10, blah, blah, blah. Well, if you'll look, I typed in 2.2, but I wanted it to be an integer, and it's fussing about that. Okay. Notice that when these were floats, it accepted an integer because you can convert an integer to a float, and you won't lose any precision. All it does is it takes 5 to 5.0. That's even better precision. But if I try to take a float and convert it to an integer, I'm telling it I'm going to lose some precision, so it would have to drop off the 0.2, right? And it won't do that unless I specifically tell it to. We're not going to worry about that. So if you want a specific type of data to come in, then you need to put it here, enter float. Okay? So we can input strings. Here's how you do those. Just input a string. You can input ints, integers, just by saying turn it into an integer, or you can input floats by saying turn it into a float. If you're going to do math, you're going to want to enter a float, obviously. Okay? Any problems? Anything? Okay? So let's come over and look at homework 1 for a minute. Let me bring that up. I think I had that. Here we go. Okay, so when you look at the way a homework is written, I have a lot of things you need to do. as to how it's going to be turned in, how it's going to be graded and stuff, and we're going to go through some of that. But let's just look at the first problem. When you look at a homework, there's going to be 4 problems. The first homework, they're not that difficult and they're not that long. So, I mean, you're probably looking at 50 lines of code most. Okay. But the first problem says, let's take a formula, which we should know how to do, and let's calculate the BMI. Okay, now I give you all the words of what these stand for. All right. So in Python, what I would do, let me bring that up. Oh, there it is. Okay. In Python, what I would do is the first thing you have to do in your homework file is put your name here. You don't have a name there, it's not going to be graded. Okay. So you want to make sure you've got your name here. And that's at the top. The next thing the homework tells you to do is when you start one of the problems, make a comment and tell me what problem it is. So we're going to do problem 1. Okay. Now if you put extra spaces in here, that's fine. I don't care. Okay. So we're going to start problem 1. Okay. So I come over here and I look at problem 1. And I have to do this formula thing. Okay, it says write a program for BMI calculator, reads the user's input pounds and inches. So I'm going to do some reading, then I'm going to calculate, and then I'm going to print. So that was our format before, right? Read, calculate, and print. So I said read in weight, pounds and inches. All right, so let's do that. Weight equals, right? And you can assume all of these are integer. We're not going to do, 100.5 pounds or anything like that. Oops. Wait. I got my input. There we go. Well, I tell you, this keyboard is not, okay. It has nothing to do with the typist, I'm sure. Okay, so we're going to input the weight and turn it into an integer. We're going to do the same thing with height. Let's look at what I'm saying here. When you look at my output, oh, I said enter weight in pounds. So I better come up here and say enter weight in pounds. It has to look exactly like what I'm saying here. So you want to make sure that it does. Then this one, I say enter inches. And that was wrong as well. It's enter inches. You're going to want to do this. You're going to want to make sure that it looks exactly like I said it needed to look. All right. Notice there's a space after the colon. All right. And you want it to look exactly like this. So when I say on this one up here about input output should be displayed exactly as shown. Okay. And that's exactly what you want to do. Now, once I have those, I just need to turn into the formula. All right. But I know what all the names are. So I've got that body mass index equals, and it is weight times 703. Weight. That's a pretty easy formula. And then I say print it out, and it has to be printed out like this. So what we'll say, that's words. Okay, print. Body is capital B for body. Okay, is colon. And then I want to print the body mass index. So the question is, does that get printed with a comma or a plus? I'm printing 2 separate things, and one's a number. Okay. If I save it, when I save this, I want to come in, and I've already told you up here somewhere. Save it as homework1.py. It has to be named the same or you're going to get points deducted. So I'll come in and I'll say save as homework. I have to put .py on it. It will already have .py on there. I'm not going to, well, I'll save it. Doesn't matter. I'm not gonna, yeah. Okay, there we go. Right. Let's run it. Let's see what happens. Weight in pounds. Now the sample data I gave you was 120 and 63. Okay, so we'll try that. 120 and 63. Does that look like the output? Yep. Body mass index is. Yes. Okay. Now, if you come out and you have one less digit over here, that's just a computer thing. That's okay. You'll get at least a few of these. All right. But I spelled everything the way it looks like it's supposed to look, and everything looks okay. All right. Now, this is just one sample output of running the program. I could run it more if I wanted and put different numbers in. I could say 100 pounds, 100 pounds, and I don't know, 50 inches. Okay. So you can try it with different data, but for sure, what I have has to show up. All right. Now, it's not sufficient to come in here and print the answer. I can't come in here, and print what's in here. All right. I will look at your code, so I'll know if you just printed something like that without any calculation. So you can't do that type of thing. We always look at the code to see if you're actually calculating something instead of just printing the answer. Okay. And there you have it. There's problem 1. So then when you get ready for problem 2, you come down and you put a comment and say problem 2. Move on down and you start doing what problem 2 says. And we're not going to do that one, but when you finish that, you come down and you'll say here's problem 3. This is the basic format that all the program has to be, all programs have to be put into. Your name, and then a comment for every problem, and then just the code. Now, if you put an extra comment in here, that's fine. Just don't put a lot of comments. This one doesn't really need any comment. We can tell what this program is doing without any comments. Most of these you probably can do without any comments for the first homework. And your homework looks like this. So then you save it as homework1.py, you upload it to Canvas, and this is what we grade. So when we come in, we get the program and we just hit run, and it walks through every one of these problems at the same one right after the other, and helps us grade them faster than if we had to open 4 different programs. Okay?
Professor?
Yeah.
How did you get the output? Could you show that one more time?
Right here, the print.
So I see that, but can you go to the other page you have opened up? Where did you get the 100 pounds and the 50?
Oh, I just put in new numbers.
Okay, you're just entering them?
Yeah, I just changed. So I just give you, when I give you output, I just say sample data.
Okay, so we just put that in.
Yeah, they could be any numbers. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. So there, you've done 25% of your homework. Now, do not wait till the night before to do all the homework, because something always happens. Okay, no matter what. All right.
Professor, I have a
Make
question.
sure you get it. Yeah, yeah.
So for the body mass index, as a variable, did
Yeah.
you verify that as an integer or
Well, you tell me, what's it going to be? You know the answer because you saw the output, right?
right? But I guess my question is, you don't have to identify that value, that variable?
No. And the reason is because the minute I do division, it automatically tells me it's going to be float, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
Now,
right.
if I'd done this, what would it be? Been an integer, right?
I think so.
Yeah, right. All because of the operator I used. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Just making sure.
Yeah. Okay. So look over some of the others in the homework. You know enough to do basically everything in the homework, but we can talk some more next Tuesday if you're having some issues with some of the problems or whatever. I have a typo in the file, so I'll have to upload a new file and get the typo out and everything. Also, I made an announcement that we're going to start lab hours next week. So every Monday and Wednesday at 2 to 3:30, our graduate assistant is going to hold lab hours, and she'll post a link for that. It's optional, but I would say, go on and start working on your homework. And if you have questions, you can start with those early on. If you wait to the last minute for homework, then there's so many in the chat for the lab hours that we don't get to everybody. So, look into that. And she does more than just help with homework. If you don't understand a concept or you need some help with something with Python, then you can go there. As I said, she'll post a link every Monday and Wednesday. So those are Monday, Wednesday afternoons. And then we meet on Tuesday, Thursday mornings. So you get some Python availability from us just about all week and everything. Okay. All right. Not bad.
I have a
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of dumb question. So like, why wouldn't you start with just in and then input? Why do you have to put the wait part first? Like, why was that again? Because
I
that's
have to save the value that the user types in. This is a variable.
oh, okay.
So when I read it in, I save it in my computer so I can use it again right down here.
Got it.
And same for height. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, I've had some email from some students, I don't know anything, I'm confused. Everybody starts out confused for the first 2 weeks, so it's okay. All right. Once you start practicing and getting used to it, you'll get better at it. All right. But you do have to practice. You can't just watch the lecture and say, okay, I got it. I mean, some can, but very few. All right. So
Professor, I had a
you
question.
practice. Pardon?
I had a question.
Yeah.
I was doing one of the checkpoints yesterday, and I was trying to look up the answers as well in the back just to make sure I got them right. I'm not sure if it's the book that's wrong or maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably
Okay.
wrong, but I just had a
So
question.
what checkpoint were you looking at?
2.19, page 65.
So what pages? Well, I don't have that anyway. Let me see. 219. That would be, it's really hard to navigate this thing. And okay, chapter 2. And
that belonged to 2.7.
oh, okay. There we go. And
it was like the last checkpoint, I think.
yeah, I don't think listed that way. Well, that's okay. Let's go find it. Temporary presence, grouping, da-da-da-da. Well, hey, there's that formula, by the way, that we just did. Everything I'm doing is out of the book, one way or the other. Looks tight. Gosh, where is this thing? Oh, this one?
Yes.
Okay, so which one was the problem?
Well, I guess that was the difference by doing the one slash. I assume that the answer would be like a float, but on the back of the book, it just gave like an integer number.
Oh, okay. Which one? The second one?
Yeah, the second one and the
Okay.
second to last one.
I'm going to look in the book real quick, hard copy, and just, let me see. So that was 219. And he might have a typo. You never know. Yeah. Okay, 219. Yeah, he's wrong in the book. He's wrong. Yes.
So one slash is float.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. That's not the first error I found in the book, but yes, that should be point something. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That would be true for this one down here as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And when all else fails, put it in Python, run it, and you'll know for sure he's wrong. Yeah. Okay. So everybody pay attention. That particular checkpoint, 219, doesn't have his 0.0 on these division ones and everything. So he's wrong.
I'm kind of surprised the ebook doesn't have corrections and stuff. I figure that'd be a lot easier to correct the ebook than put out some errata for a physical one.
I know. Isn't that interesting? Well, he's already got another version of the book. He's probably not even paying attention to version 4 anymore and everything. Okay, cool. All right. Well, no, keep bringing any issues to the table if we find them so everybody will know them. Okay? Okay, so we know how to read in things, simple things. We're reading in simple things right now, but that's all we need for homework 1. Okay? We know that we have to convert strings to integers or floats, whatever we need. Okay? And we know how to print some things. We have more print to go, but we've got some things to print. Okay, and we've done the first problem on the homework. Not bad. All right. Are there any issues with those types of things? Okay. Yeah. The last thing in chapter 2 is a real simple thing. You know, when we do variables, we have names. Okay, or long names. But sometimes in code, okay, so let's look at this problem, for example. This number, 703, it just comes out of the clear blue if you know the formula, right? It just comes out of the clear blue. So when someone is looking at your code, they're going, 703, what number is that? Where did that come from? These things are called magic numbers. And they're not really magic, but that's what this guy calls them in the textbook. Magic numbers because they're just there and you don't know where it came from, you don't know what it is or anything. Okay? Typically, in other languages, we call those constants. Because it's hard-coded, the number 703 is not going to change when you run the program, okay? And a lot of times, constants are not listed as numbers in the code. They're listed as variables. And I don't know what the 703 is, so I'll just call it a factor. Okay. Now, I at least know what the name of it is and that it has a value. And anywhere I need the number 703, I just put in factor. Okay. Now, you don't have to do this on your homework. I'm just explaining a concept. All right. You can if you want, but you don't have to. Now, notice the difference between these variables and this variable. A constant is all caps. That's standard programming. Constants are all caps. Okay. Typically, you set them up front and you give them a value and then you use them anywhere you want in the program, but just by the name. Okay. These are named constants. And there's for all these little oddball numbers that you find. Let's look at another example. Let's say that I'm doing a tax program and I have tax rates. Right? So I might have, you know, tax 1 is whatever the value is. We'll say we read it in somewhere. Oh, it's okay. Let's just do it. Let's read in value. Now we're talking money, so it's going to have to be float. That's a key giveaway in the description of a problem. If you're talking money, you always want to do float because you want the dollars and cents. So then I might say tax 1, the value is this times 15%. And then I might say tax 2, value times, 20%. And tax 3 is value times 30%, something like that. These are all magic numbers. They're tax rates. In theory, they should be constants. So I could say tax rate 1 is 0.15. And I'd come in and I would say, that. Okay. And then later on, I might have some other things that I want to calculate. Non. I might use, some value times, and I want to use tax rate again. 1, right? And maybe I'll use 2 and 3 somewhere as well. But notice that I've used tax rate more than once in my code. Okay. If the tax rate 1 changes, I just come up here and it's changed everywhere. If I actually had to write 0.1 there and 0.1 there and 0.1 wherever it was, I'd have to do it so many times I might miss one, or I might do it incorrectly. When you have constants, you can just change it in one spot and it immediately changes it everywhere in the code because that value changed. All right. And I can immediately, oh, pardon?
Yeah, will the expectation in the class be to do like that every time versus writing it in the other way?
Not unless I tell you, you don't have to. Yeah. Okay. I'm telling you because you might see it in some of the quiz code, just so you know what it is. Okay. So unless I tell you you have to use named constants, you don't have to. Okay. But from a coding standpoint, you can look at this code and you can immediately know, oh, these are constants because they're all caps, right? And you can say, oh, these are defined by the program, they're little letters, right? It begins to help you read what's going on in the code. And when you know it's a constant, you know, oh, this is the only place it changes if I need to change it. It's just a trick, a coding trick, okay? But he does cover it in the text. So I would expect you to know what a named constant was, and I'd expect you to be able to look at this code and go, oh yeah, these are constants because they're all caps. All right. And we'll do some more with them, but it's not a major impetus to the programs that we do. If you want to use them, that's fine. Okay. But there's no requirement. Okay. Okay. So chapter 2, unfortunately, covers a whole lot of things, especially for the new person to coding into Python. All right. You have to learn all the math. You have to learn all the variables. You have to learn all the inputs and the prints. So I want you to make sure that you read chapter 2 carefully and you do some of those checkpoints type of thing. And then don't forget that I've put in some practice things for you to do along with the worksheet that we did as well. All right. So every class time I'll put in what we're going to cover that week. We've basically done chapter 2. Next week I'll come week 2 and we'll start from there with more things, and I'll give you another worksheet so that you just practice, practice, and more practice on this. Okay. Are there any questions about anything?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Questions.
Yeah. What's up?
For the homework, is there like for the problems in the homework, is there some in the book that are kind of the same?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then so you know how today you had like that Word document of all the problems that you went over that we learned today? Is there a way we can have them before class so we can print it out and just write on it, or do you not want us to do that?
Oh, I don't have a problem with that. I had forgotten to just publish, so that was just a problem on my end.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I had forgotten to publish it beforehand. So
yeah, so we can just print it out and write on it. And then the last,
I'll get it to you too far in advance, but okay.
Yeah. And then the last question is, whenever I was practicing earlier, whenever I run the module or the code, whatever you call it, it makes me save it every time. But then I see when you do it, you don't have to keep saving and saving.
Oh, okay. That's because when I'm doing something, what you don't see is I hit Control S.
Okay.
Control S, once I've named it, whatever I name it, yeah, and I change it now and I go to 2, I hit Control S and save it automatically. You can catch it up here as it moves the title a little bit, it changes it. See how it changed there?
Yes.
Yeah. It shows a star, which means it's not saved. Once I save it, it goes away, and then I hit F5. But I'm just doing that behind the scenes. You can't see me do it. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. If you don't do that and then you hit it, it will ask you to save it. Yes. Yeah. So it kind of depends on how you want to do it. Okay. Any other questions? Anything? Okay. Well, as I said, we only meet for about an hour. All right. I'll hang around just for a few minutes to see if anybody has anything they want to talk about. Otherwise, then we'll see you next Tuesday. And don't forget lab next Monday. If you need something, she'll be there and she'll send a link. All right. Y'all have a good weekend.
Oh, hey, Professor.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever